Hey friends, Katerina here. I am actually recording this solo. Well, I have Salem with me, so there will also be baby noises on this podcast. There they are. But this is actually the first time of me attempting to record the podcast by myself and not with a partner, but I think it is something that... You okay, Salo? Something that needed to eventually happen. I think when you have a podcast, that's a normal thing to do, is to share also solo and not always have somebody to go back and forth with. So I do really enjoy doing the podcast with a friend, but we'll see how this goes with just me. I find this to be a lot more intimidating on my own than with somebody, I guess, because there's no one to bounce ideas off of or to hear their feedback or their thoughts or ideas, because I feel, I think, kind of inspired when I hear someone else's thoughts and ideas and feedback. It kind of brings fresh thoughts to my mind, and in this case it's just me and myself. So hopefully I've got plenty here to record an entire podcast, and it won't be like a super short, well, there's my 10 minutes. So we'll see. So if you're here on your own, I'm on my own as well. And I thought I would talk about my career journey over the last decade, because I think I have a little bit of a unique journey, and there are a lot of things about my journey through my career that have to do with figuring out being the kind of mom that I want to be, being the kind of friend and family member I want to be, and then also having a banging career. And it has been a challenge, and there's been a lot of learning that I've had to do. And I think it makes sense to share that journey and share what I've learned over the last decade, basically. I'm 30 now, and I graduated college when I was 21. So there's been a lot that's happened. Oh, excuse me. Goodness gracious. In the last almost decade. And so just a little bit about why you maybe should care at all about what I have to say on this topic. I have done really well in real estate and have been able to afford to buy and renovate this great house for my girls and I on my own, and be able to do my own real estate projects and kind of fashion my life to look like I want it to look. So when I want to be present and spending intentional time with my kids, I do that. And when I want to be working, I work. And I don't think everybody gets to say that. So I'm hoping that maybe giving a little bit of insight of how I got here will be helpful. So I graduated... I'm trying to change a diaper. I graduated from Longwood University, summa cum laude. Turns out that it doesn't matter, because no one now cares that I have a degree at all, but I do have it hanging in my office just so I could look at it. So very expensive, hard-earned piece of paper. And even in college, I got really good grades. I partied 2 to 3 nights a week. I was super involved in multiple organizations and had leadership roles in multiple organizations, and I worked. So I think I've always been somebody who naturally is a little bit of a hustler. And if you're watching this on YouTube, sorry for any weird angles with this camera, but I am trying to take care of this baby while I record this podcast, and that requires a little bit of juggling. So bear with me and the really flattering angles. But I think I've always been somebody who leans towards hustling and working hard and probably taking on too much. And I think I definitely took on too much in college, and I graduated a semester early with a BSBA with a concentration in management and a minor in Spanish. And honestly, getting the minor in Spanish was just as hard as getting my major, and it was only like one class a semester, and it was like just as hard as all my other classes combined, because I was doing stuff like writing papers about ancient Spanish literature, and my Spanish is so casual and conversational. So it was a very interesting journey, but I got through that. And when I was coming out of college, I interviewed with a lot of different people and did a lot of exploring, trying to figure out where I wanted to land. And when you have a business degree, it can be kind of tricky to figure that out, because the options are endless. No matter what degree you have, unless you're getting a master's in something really specific, or your degree is in teaching because you want to be in teaching, something like that, it can be very difficult to figure out how you want to apply your education. I was very drawn to sales type roles. That's kind of my personality, and I love talking to people. I'm very outgoing, and I had interned with Enterprise and always did well on the sales end of that job and enjoyed that part. So I had some job offers from places that were salary, places that were salary plus bonuses, places that I probably would have made pretty good money out the gate, but I was very drawn to doing something in the housing industry, probably because I grew up around it. My parents own Blue Ridge Custom Homes, and I was very drawn to the housing industry and had always enjoyed what I did get to be a part of with that. And we had always moved and built a lot growing up. So holy moly, Salem. Sorry. But basically, I interviewed with a lot of real estate brokers, and then also talked to some loan officers and successful loan officers, and decided I wanted to do mortgages for a living. Part of that decision, because it kind of, for me, came down to, I thought I probably want to pursue being a realtor, being a loan officer, doing mortgages. And I think part of what made the final decision for me is that I felt like if I went to be a loan officer, I would be doing that more on my own than if I was a real estate agent, and that if I was a real estate agent, I probably would have gotten a little bit more natural support from my parents' company, and I really wanted to succeed without them propping me up so much. So I used my connections through Longwood. This very cool person, Judy, got me an interview with my manager at this company, and I was able to get a job there, which was really cool. And definitely, if I had not used the networking to get an interview there, he would not have interviewed me, because I was fresh out of college, and being a loan officer is hard as hell. So I graduated a semester early in December, right out the gate, took the class, took the test, passed, got licensed as a mortgage loan officer, and just I guess the best way to describe that year was a year of learning. So it was a lot of hustle, a lot of calling really crappy old leads, and learning as much as possible. And anytime I did a mortgage, my manager and my sales manager held my hand and just made sure, I think, that I learned as much as possible in every single situation. So the first year out of college was the year of hustle. It was learning. So and having like terrible imposter syndrome. That's probably, if I look back at any point in my life, that's probably the point that I had the most imposter syndrome ever, because I still felt like a child. Like, I was just out of college and I felt like a little girl, and I was doing mortgages for adults, and I just felt like I'd be having these conversations, taking an application for a mortgage, and I'm like, oh my gosh, do they know that I am a child? Like, I was 21, but you're still very much a child right out of college. And so that was definitely the worst imposter syndrome I've ever had. This killer real estate agent that I had chatted with at the time, right before I started, gave me some good advice. He was like, he told me, you're gonna feel this way, and you just gotta fake it till you make it. You just gotta do your best and put that hat on and go for it. And I did go for it, and I actually dressed business professional probably every single day, especially the first couple years, because I knew that I looked young, and being a young woman, I knew that I was not going to be afforded. No one was going to just assume that I knew what I was doing or that I had any credibility. So I felt like I needed to dress like a professional and dress like somebody who knows what they're doing. And I think that was the right move, because as much as we don't want the world to be this way, and it would be better if it wasn't this way, we do get treated differently depending on how we present ourselves. And I knew at the time that I needed to present myself like a real professional, because I was a young woman and also felt like a child. So that was kind of how I pushed through that feeling of like, oh my gosh, do they know I do not belong here? And this is really hard. And the first couple years of doing loans, there were some really hard, it was really tough work. There was so much learning involved, really long days. And there were times where I'd call my sister and I'd be like, that's it, I'm gonna quit, because I'd have like some terrible client or some terrible realtor I was working with. Like, I'm gonna quit, I'm quitting my job. And my sister would be like, no, you're not. and she was my person who I could call and say, I'm so frustrated, I'm so upset, or over it, I'm so worn out, I want to give up. And she was there to just listen and then say, you're not going to give up and you can do it. And like pushed me a little bit, because she knew I could do it. And I knew that, and I needed somebody who was there who was like, no, you're going to like, you're going to tackle the situation. So first year, I think I made, I don't know, it was probably what a lot of people make right out of college. It wasn't an amazing number. And then the second year out of college, I made very good money, and I was like, there it is. Second full year out of college, made great money for being so fresh out of college. And it was like a reassurance. It was like learning that when you put your head down, you buckle down, and you just work really hard and you commit to something, it does pay you back. And that was a very important lesson, I think, to learn out the gate. And I had saved up some money coming out of college. I'd been working, and I'd saved up some money and was able to get loans done within, like, I think I probably closed on a loan within like a few months out of college. So then I was able to keep surviving outside of my parents' house. And it was, anyway, there were a lot of lessons, and I learned so much, and I toughened up so much in that couple year span. Like, just in that couple years, being in such a hard career and just committing to it wholeheartedly, to this situation that was such a tough role as a young woman, and people wanting to discount you, and you needing to be able to back up what you were doing with real knowledge and expertise in something that you previously really didn't know anything about. So there was so much learning and so much grit in the first 2 years. It was so tough. And I think, and there was a lot of stress and anxiety around it. And I think there were a lot of nights where I didn't sleep, or there were a lot of nights where I would wake up at like 3 or 4 in the morning and go to the office and start working, because my brain would just switch on and be like, we need to deal with these loan files. And it was tough, but I think it toughened me up a lot from a work standpoint. It taught me the value in hustling like that and what it can do for you. And also, I think, created some calluses there where I could face more and more stressful situations and not be overwhelmingly intimidated, and I could find myself in situations that were very high stakes, very stressful. I mean, you're dealing with mortgages, it's a really big deal, and there's a lot on the line, and you really can't be making mistakes. And so being in situations where you're responsible for these financial turns in somebody's life, I think toughened me up to be able to be in high stress situations and remain calm and eventually be able to sleep. Although that part came much later. It took me quite a while to learn to sleep even when work was stressful. So my third year out of college, I was on track to make 6 figures as a mortgage loan officer. And there was obviously there's almost like a romanticizing, I think, that happens between loan officers and realtors. And loan officers, we network with realtors and try to get them to send us business, and realtors get wined and dined by loan officers, and it's this partnership that you have. And of course, I think it's very normal for loan officers and realtors to look at the person on the other side and go, should I be on that side of the table? And there was a conversation I had with my parents one night. We had gone out to dinner, and I might have said something like, I don't know if I'm going to be a loan officer forever. And that for me, there was not enough autonomy. So even though I was 100% commission out the gate, 100% commission, I was still W-2, and there are expectations on you, and you working at the office and being at certain places at certain times, and you have bosses. And there was also, so I'm a person who thrives with a lot of autonomy and being responsible for myself. And on top of that, I felt like in the mortgage world, there's such an overwhelming burden of regulations that I felt like I don't think I ever want to run a mortgage office or start my own mortgage company or be more responsible for a business like this than I am as a loan officer. That to me felt like there would be so much emphasis on a lot of detail work, and that's not what I enjoy. I enjoy bigger picture stuff. So I felt like I don't know that I ever want to grow in this role, that I ever want to be the head of a team or have my own branch or anything like that. But I'm also not a person who's going to stay in one role forever. I need new challenges and new experiences. So the thought was in my head, like, do I need to be in the mortgage world in a different capacity? Do I need to be switching over to real estate? And also, even then, even as a child, I knew I wanted to be a mom. I grew up around a lot of babies and a lot of young kids, and had a lot of little cousins who I love so dearly. And so I think those experiences, I knew I loved my doggies. I knew I felt maternal and wanted to be a mom, and that was an experience that, tell us, Salem, I wanted to have. And so it was very like heavy on my mind since as long as I can remember. How are you a person that wants to have a serious career but also wants to be a really present mom, and how do you make that happen? And obviously I've learned that you can work full-time and then take the time that you do have with your kids and just be really intentional with that time. And I think that's really the key there. At that moment, I felt really dubious about it, and I really didn't know what the answer was going to be or how that was going to look in my life. And so anyway, I definitely thought I might need more autonomy one day, and was having a conversation with my parents after dinner, and my dad said this one little thing that was like, well, if you were a licensed real estate agent and eventually got your broker's license, maybe we could start a brokerage together. And I immediately, like, something clicked where it was like, you know what, if I was on that side as a real estate agent, I would want to grow. Like, I could see having a team or having a brokerage one day. And there are so many different ways to be a realtor and to sell houses. You have tons of options. You have tons of autonomy. You can do it however you want. The regulations are not as overwhelming as they are on the lending side. So it's like immediately I knew that I wanted to do that, that was the move. So and at this point I was working hardcore as a loan officer, and I asked Daniel Keaton, who I had known since I was a child and who had his own small real estate team at the time, for a meeting. And he had actually called me up right after I got out of college and asked if I wanted to be a licensed agent and come join his team. But I had already gotten my loan originator license, and I was like, dang, too late. And I have gotten my license as an LO, and I need to succeed at that before I start anything else. And that's a little bit just who I am. If I start something, I want to like do it well for a minute and be like, okay, I conquered that, and then I can move on. So anyway, he came to mind immediately as the person I would want to work with, because I had known him for so many years and I knew what kind of person Daniel was, and that he was this awesome person. And it's who my dad suggested as well, that even though Daniel wasn't somebody who had sent me business as a loan officer, because of his relationships that he already had when I got licensed, he was the kind of person that you can look at it and be like, this person is someone who has found success. He's done it in a way that's ethical, that I think you could be proud of, and he's the kind of person I want to learn from. So I went and sat down with him and was like, I'm going to be a real estate agent. I'd like to join your team. And he was like, absolutely, let's go. So I started taking the real estate course. It's a 60-hour course. You can take it online. And at the time, I was busting my tail as a loan officer, working like 12-hour days. So I was working like from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. And I would get home and do like 2 hours of the real estate course. And so it was a lot. It was a lot. But I was determined to continue to be successful as a loan officer, to continue to learn as much as possible, to make good money as a loan officer, because I was going to need it if I was going to start over in a new career. And so halfway through 2017, I was on track to make 6 figures as a loan officer, but my license came in for being a realtor, and I made the switch. And I'm very thankful for the people that I worked with as a loan officer. They were great people, and I also am really glad that I made the change. And I think that I was a good loan officer, but I think this is an even better fit. And this way I can be a lot more relationship based. Like, I definitely had relationships with agents and clients as a loan officer, but I think you get to be even closer with people as a real estate agent, and I really appreciate that component. It's important to me. So I made the switch halfway through 2017. By the end of that year, I had done, I honestly can't remember how many deals I did. It might have been like 5 deals or something, not including my personal ones, because I did sell my house at that point and buy a house. So I think, not including those, I think it was something like 5 deals, just getting my feet on the ground. And then my first full year in real estate, 2018, I got pregnant towards the beginning of the year, and that was a year of learning, which unfortunately, fortunately, however you want to see it, in a role like being a real estate agent, you have to have this learning period where you have to kind of set aside the focus on the money and really focus on learning and perfecting your craft. So I think that year was so much about just digging in and learning as much as possible. And so like, I didn't make amazing money that year. That was like, whatever. It was like fine. Survivable, doable, but definitely heavy haircut from what I had been on track to make the year before. So just learned a ton. And obviously my background doing mortgages was very helpful, and I think got my career off to a head start a lot faster than it would have been if I hadn't had that knowledge from doing loans. So I had Kyla, my first baby, the end of 2018. And so going into 2019, I was very confused about what to do. And I had this thought in my head that I was going to leave her after a month or two and like go work. And the time came and I was very stressed out and was like, I can't do it. And I called up my broker, Daniel, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I haven't even pumped. I am not ready to leave this baby, but I am also not ready to quit real estate. I can't leave either. And he was like, then don't. Tell us, Salem. And I was like, oh, okay. So I brought Kyla with me for like the first 6 months of her life, maybe even a little longer. And I think I hired like a part-time nanny who would help watch her when I was home with her. And then eventually I left Kyla with the nanny. But like for like 6 months, I brought Kyla with me, and I just hunkered down and worked as hard and as fast as I could. I was not tracking my numbers. I wasn't tracking my calls. I was just doing as much work as I possibly could. I was just working as hard as I could stand it. And like halfway through that year, I was in Daniel's office and he was like, you're doing a lot of deals. I was like, yeah, it feels like it. And he's like, no, you have like 14 deals under contract. And I was like, wow, really? Wow, that's a lot. And he's like, you're on track to make 6 figures this year. And I was like, I am? I had no idea. And I did. I made 6 figures my first year as a working mom. It was my second full year as a realtor. And again, it strengthened that message that I had already received from God, from the universe, that we reap what we sow. And when you dedicate and commit to something, it pays you back for that. There is ROI on your time and effort investment. And it kind of reinforced this thought of, buckling down and grinding your teeth and just doing the best that you can, and how that does pay you back. So that was really cool, and it was really reassuring. We all know what happened next, 2020. So 2020 came, and when 2020 started, Daniel went and started his own brokerage. So it wasn't just him having a team. He started his own company, and that was an opportunity for me to grow. So I could still be under him, but start my own team. So he started his own brokerage, Keaton and Company. I started my team within his brokerage, Custom Life. And Ashley came and joined as the first member. And then COVID happened. I was already pregnant with Demi, my second baby. So I was pregnant before 2020 even came. I think I got pregnant like the fall of 2019. So tell us, Salem. And yeah, sorry for any noises. I've got the dog and the baby and trying to manage this. So, gosh, COVID started, so I lost my childcare. And so I was pregnant at home with a 1-year-old all day, every day. and it was so hard and so terrible because I felt like a shit mother because I was trying to work and I was at home with this 1-year-old who needed attention, and I didn't want to be there ignoring her, but I also didn't want to be a crappy real estate agent. And I had this team, and I was doing my own production, which we did great that year. Production wise, like, we killed it. We buckled down, we worked hard, we adapted to the market, we made it happen. So we did great in 2020, and the team grew, and gosh, it was brutal. And there were a lot of nights where, because I was taking so much of the day to just be present with Kyla, because I was the only person with her every single day during the day, that I would then have to stay up till 1 a.m. working as a pregnant woman, and then, getting up early the next day with a 1-year-old. And it was really, really tough. And I wouldn't recommend it. It was kind of brutal, getting more and more pregnant and being exhausted. And I was also doing the transaction coordinating for my team because it was a new team. I was trying to be very financially conscious about how I was running things because having a team is expensive. Lola, please don't lick yourself. So it was brutal. I also, at this point, when I was a loan officer, I had renovated a house with Blue Ridge and bought it. And then I sold that house as soon as I became a real estate agent and bought a duplex in Goochland that I moved into with my husband at the time. And then when Kyla was born, we moved into a house we built 2 weeks later in Goochland. So towards the end of 2020, I sold the new house in Goochland, moved in with my parents because we didn't have anywhere to go. We had this piece of land in Powhatan we were going to build on, but we decided not to do that because of the cost of building at the time, which is a joke, is hilarious. Don't ever try and time the market. That was a huge mistake. If we had built that house, we would have had so much equity in it in a year. It would have been amazing. So don't ever try to time the market. That would be my lesson there. And then, so anyway, having the 2 babies and life being really hard, I was like, you know what? We need to move in closer to civilization. The only relative who's ever helped me with these kids ever is my grandmother. She lives in Short Pump. So I found this house that needed to be fixed up, bought it sight unseen, wrote an offer I could not get out of because it had to be there were 24 offers on this house, and the house was so popular you could not get in to see it, and I couldn't even attempt to break in to see it because I had 2 babies. So it was just a blind faith. It's got to be great. I'm just gonna go for it. Made an offer that could not be refused and that I could not get out of without even seeing the house. And it worked out. It was a house that needed to be fixed up right in Short Pump. It was fantastic. So we started renovations on that, and I was living out in the middle of nowhere trying to run the team. And the end of 2020 came, and I made the amount of money I wanted to make. Had doubled almost doubled my income from the year before. And it was interesting because it was the first time that I thought that wasn't worth it. And the amount that I had suffered that year was not worth it. And so the tax papers came in the mail with the exact amount of this is what you got paid this year. And it was the number I wanted, and it was not worth the suffering. And that was the first time I felt that way. And I was like, wow, that's a reality check. So the renovation on the house here in Short Pump took longer than it should have, but finally in 2021 got into that house a few months into the year, got to move in. And then my team was big. It was a record-breaking year in real estate. 2021 was baller. It was incredible and crazy. So my team and I crushed it in 2021, and I had hired good childcare and was like hiring people to help clean the house and that kind of stuff. So that part, from like a business life management perspective, I was doing a better job and like had learned more of a lesson on not suffering so much. Not that I didn't suffer at all for my work at that point, but I just realized that needed to be kept under control a little better. So I hired Tori as my full-time assistant. That was life-changing, and having good childcare is everything. So, and it's, I would say, when you're trying to figure out what kind of childcare you want, whether it's daycare, having a nanny, or whatever works for you. For me, I've really enjoyed having nannies, especially when it's a good nanny. It's just a very sweet, symbiotic relationship that you get to have. I think the important thing as a parent, a working parent who's trying to figure out how much childcare you need, when you need it, what kind of childcare, is just go with whatever you're comfortable with at the time. And remember that there is grace there and there's room to change it. And it's okay to start down one avenue of childcare and be like, I need more hours with a nanny, or I actually need less. I need to be with my kids more. And let it evolve how you need it to evolve, and don't feel so married to one decision, because in different seasons and times, you might need it to look differently than you did before, and that's okay. So that was kind of something I had learned there. 2021, I left my marriage and bought a condo that I completely renovated and could stay at when it was, so that I wasn't spending the night in the same house with my ex-husband every night. So when he was there at the house, I would go to the condo. And that was something real estate did for me that I will always be really thankful for. And I think looking back, it's like that, I didn't realize it at the time, but all the work and effort I was putting into real estate was so that there would be the financial freedom to split assets and everybody be good, and me be able to take the chunk that I had and create a situation that was made sure that I had a sanctuary, and I will always be so thankful for that. So 2021 ended. It was another like year of doubling production. It was fantastic. It was an unbelievable year in real estate. I had gone through some difficult personal things, but from a real estate perspective, it went really well. And again, I think just reinforce this idea that even when things are tough, like, you show up every day and you work on your craft and it will come back to you. Lola, that's not for you. Lola has Demi's teddy bear. No. And if Demi saw that, wow, we would not be okay. All right. Lola, this is for you. We have toys here. We have toys. Wow. Anyway, so I think when you are working on something like a career that has potential to feed you, the more that you put into it, like, show up and work in your craft every day, and it comes back. But also remember to hire help, because you don't need to be doing every single thing yourself. Anyway, so going into 2022, wow, I can't even believe 2022 is already over. I'm like recounting this, and it feels like I should be, like, when I talk about going into 2022, I'm like, didn't that just happen? No, that was a year ago. So things have been going great in real estate, and towards the beginning of 2022, I got pregnant surprise. It was not on purpose. And that was definitely like what am I going to do now? And I thought I was going to buy my ex out of the house that we shared. And then what ended up happening is over the summer, this house came on the market 2 doors down from that house. And I was like, I don't care which of us buys it. If you want it, you can buy it. But one of us needs to buy it. This is a unique situation that is never going to happen again. And the house needed to be fixed up, which was just perfect. So I bought this house that I'm in now and started renovating it. I sold the condo that I had fixed up, and I also bought a house over in Lakeside that I actually just put under contract. That one took a long time to renovate. That was like a 6-month situation because there were a couple months where I let the people live there for free after we closed because I did not want them to be homeless. And then after that, I wanted to make sure that this house that I was in was totally and completely 100% done before Salem was born. That was really important to me. I had never been able to bring a baby home to a finished house with a nursery. That had never happened. And it was important to me to create another sanctuary here for that. And I did finish this house. It was awesome. And then got started on Lakeside. The team evolved and changed and allowed me to put a little bit more emphasis on my personal production right before she was born, which was really cool, and kind of focus on myself a little bit more, which I think I needed very badly. And so 2022 was the first time where the business did not grow. And if anything, like really it shrank. Like the size, the volume of the production and stuff was much less, but it was what I needed and it's what it needed to be. And it allowed me to do these projects in my own life and focus so heavily on this house so that I could be done in time. And then also take a lot of intentional time with my kids. So I kind of took a step back a little bit and stopped having regular childcare because I am sharing my 2 oldest with their dad. There's time where that is childcare for me, and I can work during those times. So there was a lot of evolution and change, and gosh, and I need to wrap this up. So this actually, okay, I'm glad that I've done I am going to reach a full podcast length here. So I could talk a lot about how I am setting myself up to financially not have so much risk right now, and making sure that I've put myself in a place where if I want to focus more on the team and less on my production and not have to worry so much about the exact income that I'm getting each quarter, I can do that. And I'm just leveraging my assets, putting them into my mortgage and using a home equity line so that I can basically use my home like it's a bank. But anyway, it's been a journey. So 2021 was a lot more about being kind to myself and reclaiming that and reworking what I wanted life to look like. And it was a really hard, challenging year and time, and being pregnant makes me feel really sick a lot of the time, but there is also a lot of beauty there, and my people who are my inner circle, I think, showed up for me and showed me a lot of love, and that was really wonderful. So once again, real estate had fed me. I became a licensed broker last year at the same time I was finding out that I was pregnant. I took the broker's test the week after I found out I was pregnant, and I already felt super sick and I was gonna vomit, which was great. Which was a huge goal for me, becoming a real estate broker. That was kind of what started the whole thing, right? So now here we are, 2023. I feel like there's a good balance between running the team and also having my own personal production. I love being partnered with Tori. She got her real estate license, and it's awesome to get to work with her every day and also work smart and make sure that I am scheduling myself in a way that I'm happy with. So basically, every other day is a day that's kind of dedicated to my kids. And that doesn't, I'm for sure going to take work phone calls and get some work done no matter what. And Demi and Kyla are actually in preschool 5 mornings a week, which that's a ton of childcare right there. And so when they're in school or when they're with their dad, that's work time. That's time to be scheduling work things. And when they're here, I get to take that time and very intentionally be with them and try to be a present mother. And obviously, I'm only 2 months into having 3 kids here, and it's a lot, mostly at bedtime. But I've evolved and adapted and figured out what works and doesn't work, and given myself grace to realize that this is just a season that I'm in where I have a newborn and these 2 little kids, and it's going to be tough, but it's doable. And the way life looks right now isn't the way it has to look forever. So really, I dedicate the time that I'm not with them to working in my craft, and the time that I am with them, again, I do take work phone calls and stuff like you have to in this business. You cannot tap out of that. But it's very much intentional time with my kids, and I don't, as much as I can possibly help it, I'm not scheduling work stuff when I'm supposed to be with the kids, or scheduling anything else, personal or work. It's just, that's not happening. And it's a really beautiful balance that's happened, and I'm really thankful for it. And I'm not sure what the future holds or how the team is going to evolve this year and what things are going to look like, but I can say I'm thankful for the time that I put in the beginning and how it's fed me now, and the amazing clients and referral partners that I have that bring me new business and support me. And I could not be doing what I am doing if it weren't for these people who believed in me and trusted in me to help them in real estate. And I'm very passionate about it. I love this industry, and I love the freedom that it's given me, and I'm just so thankful, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm so thankful for it. And if you have questions about anything with that journey, I hire people to come clean my house, deep clean once a week. So I don't do, obviously there's some daily kitchen and laundry and that kind of thing, but I have people who come here every week to deep clean. I don't step foot inside a grocery store. Groceries get ordered and they get picked up and brought here by someone else. And there's a lot of things that I delegate so that my very precious time resources can be spent doing things like puzzles with my kids or dealing in real estate. So that's kind of how I handle it, and we'll see what the future holds and where it goes. But I'm thankful for this journey and for the lessons learned along the way. And I don't know if that was actually helpful to share all of that, but that's kind of what my career path has looked like over the last decade. And oh, are you okay? And I'm gonna go pay more attention to this baby who's sitting here. And I'm appreciative for this. And actually, this podcast is kind of the first thing that I've done that wasn't super work related. I just wanted to start a podcast that was for me and my girlfriends. And by girlfriends, I mean the people that I invite on the podcast, but also the people that listen, because I feel like when we connect with people through feeling moved by maybe what they post on their Instagram or what they share in a podcast or in a reel, whatever it is, I feel like those are your people. We kind of find our community in a special way through these platforms, and it's really cool to be able to do that. And I feel like I've been able to connect with people over Instagram that I've never met and might never meet in real life, but we can appreciate each other from afar, just looking at each other's crafts and ideas and the things that we share and saying, that's a like-minded soul, or that person has valuable things to share and I like hearing it. And so it's cool to feel like I'm connecting with other people who are, in a way, like you're part of my community if you're listening or interacting here. So thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to the first podcast. It's just me talking. That was nerve-wracking to just go for it, but I'm glad I did it and it's done. So till next time.